Chapter 6. The day before he was due to leave Charleston, Jeff crossed over the top of a low, sandy dune overgrown with scrub bushes. He saw the beach stretching away to the south, the ocean stretching out to the endless east. The line of waves breaking on the shore, sandpipers in nervous bands fishing the waves' edges, 3 pelicans flying in a line over the surface of the water. He breathed in the salty air, the wind against his face. He saw a world in which he was the only human inhabitant. It was mid-morning and hot. Jeff ran down the dune and across to the water. To the north, he saw a narrow spit of land and turbulence of waves where the tip of the island made currents, marking the entrance of the creek into the ocean. To the south lay an unbroken distance of beach, 30 feet wide, sandy white. Jeff ran south. He had to run. He didn't know what else to do to celebrate what he had come to find here, and found. Sandpipers and gulls fled from his approach, circled, and landed again behind him. When he had run himself out, he walked, mile after empty mile. The waves broke beside him, and he succumbed to the temptation to walk among them. When he realized how hungry he was, he turned around and walked the long miles back to where he had dropped his brown paper bag full of food on the dune side. The afternoon flowed over him. He sat at the water's edge, watching the birds, the waves, and once the gliding back of porpoises cutting arcs through the ocean in front of him. He took off his clothes and waded out into the water to swim. He lay down to bake dry on the fine sand, first on his stomach, then on his back, soaking in the tireless whispering of the wind, the dry warmth of the sand, the heat of the sun, the spacious solitude all around him. When the shadows grew longer and the temperature started to drop, he knew he ought to cross back, return to the boat, but he couldn't do that. He made no decision to stay the night, but he couldn't make himself leave the beach. Gradually, he understood that he would miss the last bus. That made no difference. Jeff walked the beach again, this time picking up sand dollars, which lay flat and bleached white on the mud flats, and whirled conch shells. He made a pile of them by his empty paper bag and folded clothes. Then, sitting at the very edge of the waves, he discovered how the little pastel plaid cochinas tumbled down from the sides of the pools his fingers dug. A shower of fragile mollusks poured down with the water that came up to fill the pools. At his back, the sun went down. The sky's colors reflected by the ocean went from orange to pink to velvet blue to midnight blue and then black. Stars, millions of stars came out. The moon rose just past the full and shone down with its sad face. The path the moon made on the water glowed silver. Jeff slept on the beach hungry, but it made no difference. He awoke to a sky the color of thick smoke. All the stars had faded out but one, Venus, the morning star, low on the eastern horizon, large and white. It too shone bright enough here to make its own narrow silver path on the water. Jeff sat up and watched light and sunrise. During the night, the wind had shifted to the west and blew into his ears from behind, heated by closer air of the inner island. He saw fishing boats hundreds of yards offshore, so distant they looked like toys. All morning long he walked, through puddles between sand flats left by receding tide, until he came to the southern tip of the island. Then he turned to go back. He felt washed clean, healed. He felt if he could just live here, he would be all right. He felt as if he had never been alive before. He felt at ease with himself, and as if he had come home to a place where he could be himself without hiding anything, without pretending even to himself. He felt, thinking his way back up the beach, as if his brain had just woken up from some long sleep, and it wanted to run along beside the waves to see how far and fast it could go. When he returned to where he had left his clothes, he put them on. He picked out one perfect sand dollar from his collection of shells, then walked back to toss the rest gently into the waves, returning them. He jammed the paper bag into the back pocket of his jeans and carried the sand dollars tenderly in his hand. At the top of the dunes under the blazing noon sun, Jeff turned to take a last look. He drank in the scene with his eyes, to be able to carry it away with him. The empty beach, the line of breaking waves groping up onto the sand, the restless ocean. He crossed the island as quickly as he dared, giving the alligator pond a wide berth. When he came to the driveway leading to the burned-out house, he began to jog. His plane left at 8. He'd have to pack and catch a cab. But when he sat in the rowboat again, the oars ready, but not yet dipped into the water to take him away from the island, Jeff looked back. He didn't see the busy land crabs nor the overgrown interior. He saw the beach, knowing it was there, just beyond sight, keeping the sight of it clear in his inner eye. He splashed the oars into the water. Behind him, a great blue squawked. Jeff turned his head quickly. The heron rose up from the marsh grass, croaking its displeasure at the disturbance, at Jeff, at all of the world. Its legs dragged briefly in the water before it rose free to swoop over Jeff's head with a whirring of its powerful wings. It landed again on the far side of the ruined dock, to stand on stilt-like legs with its long beak pointed toward the water. "Just leave me alone," the heron seemed to be saying. Jeff rode away, down the quiet creek. The bird did not watch him go.